I have read this book almost daily for over a decade, and I will read this every single day until the day I die. This has been described as the key to the good life, as one of the greatest pieces of literature throughout human history, and it is completely unique in nature. There is no other piece of writing like this. This has been a companion throughout history to world leaders, to warriors, to elite athletes, and to businessmen. It has been their guide, their mentor, and their blueprint to the good life. My name is William Mulligan. I am author of The Everyday Stoic, Simple Rules for a Good Life. I teach Stoicism simply and practically to thousands of people so they can live what Marcus Aurelius called the good life. The question I get asked the most is, how do I read this book? Of course, I've been hearing all the hype, how it can change your life, how it can save your life, but how do I actually read it? I've tried. The first chapter seems pointless, seems rubbish, and I don't quite understand the words. Well, I'm here to fully explain this. I will start by explaining who Aurelius was, so you get an understanding of his character. Then I'll explain the controversial chapter 1, so that you understand it is actually an amazing chapter, an amazing piece of literature. And then I'll explain the 8 strongest themes that you've probably never heard, because every time you hear writing or words about this book, often regurgitated by AI, they are repeating the same review that was made many, many years ago, probably by Ryan Holiday. Everyone is just repeating his words over and over again. So there is nothing new. So these are the 8 strongest themes that I've learnt after reading it almost daily for over a decade. Then I'll explain, how do you actually read it? Like, it's not just a normal book. So this book can change your life. And I'm wondering why you haven't read it. Many of you probably have it on your desk and you haven't read it yet. You've probably been putting it off thinking it's difficult to read. I just want to show you that those pages right there, that is the book. Everything else is just notes and extra information. So it's just right there. And I worked out, if you can read one page, one little page there, in 90 seconds, you can read this whole book in under 3 hours. So 3 hours to completely change the trajectory of your life. The day I read this is the day my life changed. Today's episode is powered by Huel. Huel is a quick, affordable, nutritiously complete food with everything that your body needs. Let's jump into the episode. So, understanding Aurelius. People often say it's easy for the Emperor of Rome to say these things. He could have anything he wanted. He had as much money as he wanted. He had all the power in the world, and he had no restraint, which is more proof to why you have to listen to him. This man had no strings. He was boundless. And we know of emperors that came before him with this power. They did whatever they wanted. They did what they wanted to who they wanted. Their anger was uncontrollable because they had no strings, no restraints to hold him back. So Emperor Marcus Aurelius restrained himself. He didn't give in to all this wealth, all this power, and he was seen as an ordinary man. That's not just the only reason why we should listen to his words. People say his life was easy. Well, Emperor Marcus Aurelius lost 9 of his own children before his death. He lost countless of his own friends and family due to the Antonine Plague and the Marcomannic Wars, in which he was on the battlefield where he wrote most of his book. And he struggled with sickness his whole life. There was many assassination attempts on his own life. So it was a very stressful life for him, very difficult life. But you would never understand this from his book. And that's an interesting thing about this book, is he writes in this unaffected style that the Stoics called a laconic. It was their way of speaking where they don't add fancies and emotions to the words. They just explain things simply. So when you read his writings and he's talking about difficulties and stressful situations and anger and rude people and people that might harm you, he is actually referring to people that were trying to kill him. He was talking about the death of thousands of people. He was talking about threats on the battlefield. But you never understand this if just reading these words, because he doesn't go into all that detail, because he doesn't need to. And that's why these words are so timeless, because we can look at them and adapt them straight to our own life. So I'll just explain chapter 1, because it's quite controversial. People say you don't need to read chapter 1. It's pointless reading chapter 1. There's nothing good. Because chapter 1 is his thanks to the people in his life, the lessons he learned from them, and he's just giving thanks to them. So, from my grandfather Varus, decency and a mild temper. From my mother, piety, generosity, the avoidance of wrongdoing, or even the thought of it. Also simplicity of living, well clear of the habits of the rich. It's strange for him to thank a woman, because oftentimes in those history, it was a very male-led time, and it was quite rare to see these things. But Marcus Aurelius showed lots of love to his mother and to his friends. He was a very affectionate person, which we don't understand when we hear about the Stoics. We think they're just these cold, strong, robotic men. But they were very affectionate. Marcus Aurelius is actually, there's accounts of him crying, of him expressing his love to his mentor. So another thing is, if you look at his history, when his mother says about staying well clear of the habits of the rich, decency, mild temper from his father. So his mother's saying, staying clear of the habits of his rich. His mother was a very wealthy woman in her own rights. She owned a building supply company that supplied the bricks for the Colosseum and for the Pantheon. I'm sure there was another building, but she actually provided the bricks and the tiles and the building material for these buildings, and she was very rich in her own right. So at a young age, Marcus Aurelius is learning these lessons from his mother, not to give it into the habits of the rich, which was essential for him, because every emperor that came before him gave into the habits of the rich, buying expensive things, buying expensive food, all these kind of things that were known to be what the wealthy do and what the elite do. And he's seen these as harmful. So book 1, which often gets disregarded because it's just him saying, thanks to the gods for this, thanks to my grandfather for this, Severus for this, my mentor for this. It gets disregarded as like, this isn't that important. But I see this as what Marcus Aurelius aspired to be. So I wrote somewhere, I broke down all these things and wrote what it means to be a man. Now, if you're a woman, you can say what it means to be a woman. And I wrote down decency, mild temper, integrity, piety, generosity, avoidance of wrongdoing, or even the thought of it. And I wrote all these things down of what it means to be a man. And of course, some are a little bit outdated, but when you look at that, you can have a guidance. So I actually think it's a very important chapter. And another thing to note is, what translation do you read? Read whatever translation suits you best. I like the Martin Hammond translation, and this is my favorite. I've read the Gregory Hayes translation many times, and it's good, but I just prefer this for whatever reason, and it's good enough, and there's lots of information crammed into it. So chapter 1 is a very important chapter. Do not disregard it. But the point is, you can read this whole book in 3 hours. If you sit down for 3 hours and read it at a mid-level pace, you will read the book and you will get a little bit of an understanding for it. But that is not enough. That's just to get a little taste, and then you can go back and read it again. But I'll explain the 8 strongest themes that I have here. I wrote them down like a year ago as a review of the book. So, number 1, life is suffering. Life is love. Life is hideous. Life is beautiful. There is always a space to do good. Always. Aurelius lost 9 of his children. He lost countless friends and family due to the Marcomannic Wars and the Antonine Plague. He suffered a great deal in his life and suffered with sickness. The words in his journal are not the words of a privileged emperor. Life is suffering. Life is love. There is evil in this world, but there is always a space to do good. There is always a space to give that love rather than giving in to the evil. As Tolkien says, which is my favorite quote, there is some good left in this world and it is worth fighting for. I think this sums up that point, that you can't disregard the bad in the world. You can't disregard the evil, because if you try to be naive to it, then you can fall victim to it. You have to understand that these things exist, but you always have the power to do good. The power is yours. Don't wait for anyone to give you approval to do good. You can be that good. So the second point is, you do not need anyone's approval. Aurelius says that you are beautiful, you are enough, and you know what to do. Cruelty exists, and that's okay because it's part of nature. What's not okay is when this makes you believe you need to live a lesser version of yourself and shy away. Every single person has the potential of eudaimonia. So this is a similar point, but every person, and this is the most amazing thing, the goal of Stoicism, which is the philosophy that Emperor Marcus Aurelius lived by, the goal of this was to live in accordance with nature, which leads to eudaimonia. Eudaimonia is a Latin word that translates to human flourishing. This can be described as happiness or a life well lived, a life worth living. But I like to say human flourishing. It's when you're at your best. So this eudaimonia is the ultimate goal of Stoicism. So the Stoic scene, no matter who you are, emperor, slave, anyone, you have the same path, you have the same right to this eudaimonia. And just to prove that point a little bit more, Epictetus was a slave and he was a Stoic philosopher in his later life when he was freed. And Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, he was born into this vast wealth, this vast power, this greatness, this throne and this crown put upon his head from a young age. And Marcus Aurelius looked towards Epictetus from a young age, and he was his mentor. He looked at his books, maybe listened to his lectures, and he was inspired by him. So both of them, slave, emperor, had the same greatness, the same rights to eudaimonia as each other. And I think that's what's amazing. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, you can attain the same thing that these people were striving for. And oftentimes wealth and power actually hinder your path towards eudaimonia. So they can be a hindrance rather than a good thing. Whereas the Stoics say, these things are not good or bad, they are indifferent. Number 3, learn from others. Those who think they know everything will learn nothing. Aurelius learned from everyone and had great enthusiasm for learning. As you can see, chapter 1 is his lessons he learned from everyone, and he was known to be attending lectures right into his old age, almost before his death, which doesn't sound very impressive, but when you have been born and raised from such a young age, he was molded by the greatest minds of the world. He had the greatest mentors, and they were teaching him from a young age all this knowledge, how to be a great leader, how to be a great man, how to speak well, great rhetoric, these philosophical thoughts. He was also trained in the agoge training of the Greeks, it's like Spartan-like training. He was this great man, and people worshipped him from a young age. So most people like this, most celebrities you see, they get this power from a young age. They think, I'm the man, I'm the woman, I don't need to learn anything. These people, these fools below me. Marcus Aurelius didn't believe that, and I don't believe that. That's foolish. Thinking you've learned enough is foolish. That is where growth ends, when you believe that you've grown enough. So Marcus Aurelius attended lectures, he learned from people forever. And he writes the things he learned from slaves and servants and his mother and his father and his grandfather, just everyone. He learned from everyone. No one was below him. Number 4, nothing is eternal. Everything is borrowed. Do not cling, do not fret. We are just floating through space on a tiny blue speck. If you can, be good. If you can't be good, don't be a dick. Everyone is struggling, even the dicks, even the happy, even the successful. Everyone. This idea of nothing is eternal, everything is borrowed, do not cling, do not fret. This is a strong theme in Stoicism that they call memento mori. Remember death. That's what memento mori means. Remember death, or remember your own mortality. And the idea is that most people believe that we live forever. As Seneca says, we act as if we'll live forever. And so we put things off. We live this wasteful life thinking one day down the line, I'll be able to do that dream I wanted to. I'll be able to go to that place, say that thing. No, whilst you can, whilst you're alive, be good, do the thing now, live in the present. But we are mortal beings and we don't last forever, and nothing lasts forever. Friendships, loved ones, objects, wealth, health, reputation. Do not cling to these things. They'll be taken from you by the universe whenever it wants. So, if you can, be good. That's the strongest theme in the Meditations, I believe, the pursuit of being a good man. And if you can't be good, if you really just can't be good, don't be a dick. As everyone is struggling, even the dicks, even the happy, even the successful. Everyone struggles. Everyone's going through their own difficulties. And oftentimes the kindest people are the strongest because they're going through this difficulty and deciding to lift other people up whilst they're struggling. Whereas the weak will go through the struggle and then decide, I'm struggling, let's put other people down below me. Strong lift up, weak put down. So the fifth theme is to journal. The Meditations was Aurelius's personal diary intended to be read by him. If you don't know what to write because there's too much thoughts going on in your head, then that is exactly why you need to journal. You need to get these things out of your head. It will help calm your mind, but also helps you make sense of all the noise. The Meditations, this book right here, was the Emperor Marcus Aurelius's personal diary. He wrote down his thoughts throughout his life when he was on the battlefield, when he was struggling. It's him coping with things like his anger, his fear of death, his pursuit to be a good man. This is his personal diary. And, you know, if this great emperor that was super busy, had a super difficult life, if he believed it was important to journal, get these thoughts down, then I recommend it. Because like I said, if you don't even know what to write because there's too much going on in there, that's exactly why you need to write. Just write anything, get these thoughts down and get them out of here. This is cluttered, noisy. You can't even think straight. Get them down. A quick word from our sponsor, Huel. Huel is a quick, affordable, nutritiously complete food with everything that your body needs. I really like Huel. When I was writing my book, I was using Huel to power me through every single day. When I had my daily greens, when I had my meals, when I had my shakes, it stopped me from going to the shop, buying a load of rubbish, buying a load of unhealthy food, wasting loads of money. And these things do add up. Those quick journeys to the shop every day, the money adds up, the unhealthy foods add up, the wasted time adds up. So if I ever get those cravings, I grab a Huel and it fills my cravings. I feel good, it tastes delicious, it's quick and easy. And if you have any interest in the Huel products, then check the link in the description. Let's get back to the episode. This is number 6. There is no pursuit more noble than that of being a good man. Aurelius said, vanity is the greatest seducer of reason. When you're most convinced that your work is important, that is when you're most under its spell. So he was this great ruler. He could do everything, you know, fight these wars with the barbarians and the Germanic tribes. And he could travel the world, discover great things. He had all this power, but he still believed the most noble pursuit is that of a good man. Because oftentimes when you pursue these great deeds, you warp your own ethics and your own morality to make these things work. You lose sight of the fact that being a good person is the most important pursuit. So yeah, you warp and distort your morals and your ethics and what you're doing because you think this pursuit of doing something great is more important than that of being a good man. So this is number 7. Focus on yourself. People will judge you and lie. False lives will be portrayed on social media. Media will tell us what should be desired. Media will tell us what we should desire to be happy and successful. People will tell us what we should do. Everything you need exists inside you. It's okay to take advice from people, but don't live your life in accordance with the charade. So your life is lived in here. It doesn't exist anywhere else. This is the only thing. When you go to bed at night or you're alone, it's just you inside your own head. And the bit about social media, this is my interpretation. Of course, Aurelius was surrounded by whispers and colleagues, people telling him what to do, what to think, how to be. He had the crowds telling him what to be, the gladiator games, these kind of things. It's just social media, and the media is a modern day example of this. And actually, we're in the most difficult time in terms of being told, being manipulated. So this is even more important. The news will tell you what to do, what to like, what to hate. The media, the social media will tell you what you should be pursuing, these nice clothes, these nice cars, this success, this fame, this clout. But what you need to focus on is yourself, your own happiness. I made a video about this recently, that they are not better than you. They are not happier than you. They are not more successful than you. They are better at marketing their life, because people now live their life on social media to get likes, to get followers. And we think they have 1 million followers, they must be better than me. Their voice must be more better. Their opinions better, because more people are liking it. This is not true. Happiness is an inside job. Don't live for these things. Live for yourself. Focus on yourself. People will lie. People will manipulate. And it doesn't make all these people bad. It's just they're living their own narratives. They're posting their things on social media. Just focus on yourself. That's what's important. And if you make yourself a good person, then you become a better person for the world to be around. You become a better friend. You become a better partner, a better family member, a better member of society by working on yourself. And the final point, be present. The past does not exist, and neither does the future. Do not waste your life outside of this present moment. This right here is all that exists. And I know this is the focal point of most religions and spiritual journeys and philosophies. And, you know, Alan Watts says it, Eckhart Tolle says it, but this is it. This is the only thing that exists. Do not worry about the past. Do not have regrets of the past. Do not have anxieties and worries of the future. Just be in the present moment. That'll take away most of your problems. Because this moment of you listening to me on this podcast or watching me on YouTube, this is the only thing that will ever exist. This present moment right here. So you have to accept that this is enough. This is beautiful. It's great. The things around you is enough. Because if you don't, and you believe that the future will finally be enough, then you become a person that is not grateful for what they have, that puts off the present moment. So when you arrive all the way to the future, you'll be in a new present where you don't appreciate what you have and puts things off for the future. And living in the past of mistakes and worries and regrets, and you're ruminating on this, these things will never be able to change. So you're just making yourself, in this present moment, a person that is worrying, and you're making yourself worse in this present moment. Even if you've done bad things, the right thing to do for yourself is to make the most of the present moment, to improve yourself, become a better person. But even to the victims of your wrongdoing, the best thing you can do, even if they don't like it because their ego's hurt or they don't like you, the best thing you can do is become a better person, a person that gives out more good. Because it tips the scales. And I know they might not like you improving and becoming good, but it is the right thing to do because you're putting more good out into the world despite the bad you've done. That's how you can make up for your mistakes in life. So that is, hopefully now you understand Aurelius, you understand the 8 strongest themes, you understand that chapter 1 isn't pointless. You also know that it doesn't matter what translation you have, but I really like this translation. And then, how do you actually read this book? So I said at the start, you can read this book in 3 hours. But that's not enough. That will just give you an overview. The way you do it next is, so if you read the book once, something might stand out to you. Go back to that. Read it. Just mull on it for a while. Like you can see how much I make notes in this book. And the way I do it is I keep this book around me. So when I'm cooking, it's just on the side like that. When I'm in bed, it's on the side. When I'm working out in the gym, which is just behind you, it's just on a bench or on the floor. And what I do is I'll make a little bookmark in one of the pages, and I'll take a paragraph that stands out to me at that time. Sometimes some of them don't mean anything to me. Then 5 years later, it means the world to me, because like the Stoics say is, no man steps in the same river twice, for he is not the same man, and this is not the same river. You do not read, no man, when you read this book, you're stepping in a new river each time. You're a different person. The themes make sense differently. You're in different struggles, different successes, different life situations. So I will, and this is the greatest hack, is you go, this one stands out to me today, book 420. Everything in any way beautiful has its beauty of itself. That's what I was saying earlier when Marcus Aurelius says you're beautiful. It wasn't just something I made up. This is the section in the book that talks about that. So 420, and you can see I have made notes on this. And I'll just keep reading over it. So I'll do a set, bench press, and then I'll go back to it and read it once, think about it, maybe make a little note somewhere, say, oh, so the beauty is not yourself, whatever. And I'll make a note of that because it makes sense to me. And then you just keep doing this. And then one day, that chapter doesn't really mean as much to you. And then you go to another one, book 440. Think always of the universe as one living creature comprising one substance and one soul. This is the idea of the universe. We're all interconnected in this universe. Everything that goes on in the universe happens in accordance with the law of nature. And, being a good person in the universe is being good for others, being good for yourself. We're all kind of interconnected in this web. It's kind of like karma in a way. And then I'll read that. I'll be cooking. When the pasta's boiling, I got 10 minutes. I'll just keep going over it, wondering, thinking, trying to apply it to my life. And then if any of them have action or a thing. So Aurelius says perfection of character is to live each day as if it were your last, without frenzy, without apathy, without pretense. When I read a passage like this, and I've gone over it a lot, I think Marcus Aurelius says this is perfection of character, to live each day as if it were your last. He's telling you to do things. He was actually doing these things in his life, trying to live this way. It's not just a book to read and go, okay. So I go about my day thinking, perfection of character, to live each day as if it were your last, without frenzy, without apathy, without pretense. Okay, I can do that. So I'm on the bus thinking, this is the last day in my life. It's the last day of my life. Who do I want to be? I want to be a good person. I don't want to die thinking I was rude to that bus driver. I was rude to that old woman. I didn't smile back. I didn't do that thing I could have done. I didn't help out. Whatever it is. And then you incorporate these things strongly into your life. And over the days of reading through, understanding them, it soaks into your character. And this is why world leaders and warriors and elite athletes and successful businessmen, it's why they carry this thing with them. There's so many people throughout history that have held this book in the hand, doing great deeds, walking with this book hand in hand. And it's because it soaks into your character. It bleeds into you. Your soul is dyed with the colours of Marcus Aurelius' thoughts. This man, and the reason you want to dye your soul with the colour of his thoughts, is this man is one of the most unique people in history. And the unique thing about this book is it's a personal diary of this man. It's his personal thoughts that he didn't want anyone to read. It's like, imagine I can't even think, like Muhammad Ali writing a personal diary of how he was a good man, how he was the heavyweight champion, all these kind of things. And he never wanted to show anyone. It's a little secret. It would be very helpful to people. But this man, Marcus Aurelius, born into wealth, and then from a young age, he was adopted, and they decided he's going to be emperor. So we want to mold him into this great leader, this great man. He needs to be this great man. So they got the greatest mentors, the greatest teachers, the greatest tutors, the greatest role models. And then they put him through intense military training from a young age. So he went through intense military training every day, the greatest tutors. He was taught all these great things. He lived in a palace and he would sleep on the floor because he thought, this is what's good for me, the discipline. And then all this, he's gone through his incredible difficulties in life, the horrors he's gone through. He's fortified his mind into this weapon, into this powerful man, this great leader. And he's given us the blueprints of how he got through all that and became the great leader he was. And it's right here. This is everything you need. So just read it every day, little by little. And the next thing is, this will make a lot more sense if you follow me and listen to the things I teach every day, because I would talk about themes when he talks here about living the good life, or being a good man, or remembering death, or even when he explains these Latin words, they mean a little bit, but when you understand the full Stoic context behind this, it just opens your mind and your character to a world unknown, and it will change your life. So start now, and I hope it helps you as much as it's helped me. And then the last thing I'll explain that will help you read this book, it'll probably be the best thing to help you read this book, is reading my book, The Everyday Stoic Simple Rules for a Good Life. This will briefly, simply and practically explain the philosophy that he's teaching, first of all. So you understand the philosophy behind all this. So now you get a good entry into this, and you understand when he's talking about being a good man. What does it mean to be a good man? Being a good man is probably not what most people think it is, especially on modern day interpretation. They had a different interpretation, which was based on Aristotle and Socrates. Really, it's really good. Then I also explain how you can practically put this into your life. So his teachings, I explain how you can actually incorporate them into your life, because for over a decade since reading this, I was, riding the bus to work for like 2 hours there, 2 hours back. I wasn't liking my life, but I started implementing all these teachings into my life, and eventually they started soaking in. I became this person that I was proud of. I was once anxious, scared, felt like a victim to life, to becoming confident, happy, feeling good, feeling in control of life. And it is because of these exercises in here, but I'll explain how you can actually incorporate them into your life. So that, I'll tell you one thing actually, this will take you about 3 hours to read. I've got a 4-hour audio book that you can listen to. It's me talking. It sounds really good. I wasn't ill like I am now, so my voice sounds better. Penguin set it all up with a great sound booth. I had experts listening to me, making sure I made no mistakes, making sure I had my energy into it. If I was starting to slow down after reading for so long, they'll go, take a break, repeat this, that kind of thing. So this will be the great intro. Start on this, and then this will blow your mind. And if you've already read this book and you didn't think much of it because you got to chapter 1 and thought, I don't like it, try again. It is incredible, especially if you've been listening to me a while, and you give this a go again. But go this first, then this, then you're all set to go on a journey to the good life, which, if you're here listening to me and you're subscribed or you're following on Spotify, welcome to the journey, the progress, the journey towards the good life. This is the start of the new you. It takes a bit more time than people lead you to believe online. They say, in 1 week you can become this great person. It'll take time. It took me 10 years. No, it took me 7 or 6 years maybe. But if you follow me and you get it broken down simply like I did here, hopefully it'll take you like 6 months, I'm hoping. But it'll be worth it. I know it sounds long, but it will be worth it. So if you're listening on Spotify, give me a rating. Very helpful. Follow. Oh, and if you're not new here, you're old here, then keep on track, stay on this journey. We're going good places, and I love to see the comments of you that are still on this journey, growing and learning. It doesn't matter how young you are. how old you are. Someone 80 years old commented the other day. I get messages from people who are over 80, and I find it amazing, because one thing I like is that it doesn't matter what age you are. You know, a lot of people say, oh, you're over 80 now, there's not much you can do. You've got the wisdom of 80 years. You've had more life experience than anyone. You can do a lot. I know you can. So if you're over 60, comment on this video, just let me know. I'd love to see it. But I just think this book, Meditations and the Everyday Stoic Simple Rules for a Good Life, will change your life. So have a great day, and thank you for listening.